All right, we're going to call SUA. For those of you who want to go ahead and, if you're not planning on staying for SUA, this would be a great time for you to step out. You're welcome to stay for SUA. Just sensed a little antsiness in the crowd.
A bit of encouragement.
All right. At this time, I will call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for June 12th, 2023. Trustees, items on the consent docket. Is there a motion or is there action on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Item 5, general orders. Consider a bid award for the South Lime Slaker Replacement Project at Water Treatment Plant to win construction for a total bid amount of $292,000 and some other issues that David Barth will tell us about.
Good evening, trustees. David Barth with engineering. Get to talk about lime a couple of times. Let's see here. Okay, so yes, like you said, I'm here tonight to discuss the bid results for the replacing one of our lime slakers at the water treatment plant. The picture that you see on this cover slide here is the South Lime Slaker that I've outlined in orange. There's up above that is a big silo that's filled with quicklime that we use to make into a slurry paste with this slaker, and then it goes into the the solid contact units to soften the water.
May I interrupt? Can you just define the word slaker for me, please?
Can I define the word slaker?
What does a slaker do exactly?
Exactly what it does. So in this box, I don't know if you can see the cursor up there, probably not, but in the long rectangular box, there are some paddles, and the lime is dropping in there, mixing with water, and essentially it's making something that looks very much like pancake batter. Or a lot thinner than pancake batter, but still it's that consistency. And so that process of mixing the lime in the water and making it into that slurry is called slaking.
All right.
I don't know where the word came from. I don't know why they don't just call it lime batter or...
Okay. Well, I don't need the etymology. I just want to understand what we were talking about.
Sure.
So thank you.
So anyway, we have two of these slakers, and one of them is running when we're making water, and the other one is a standby unit. And right now, this South Lime Slaker needs a lot of maintenance all the time. And so we've got another project that I'll talk about in a little bit to replace our entire lime system. But until we get to that point, we need to replace this slaker unit. And so that's what this project was advertised to do. And we had two bidders who submitted bids for the project, and Wind Construction out of Oklahoma City was the low bidder. This will allow us to keep our lime system running and soften water for reliably for the next 2 years while we wait on that new lime system to be manufactured and constructed. So with that, do you have any questions before I make my recommendation?
Trustees?
I do. So I read in the documents that this is trying to get us through until we get the new system on board in two or so years.
Yes, sir.
How long have we been waiting on getting this new system on board? I mean, it seems like we're spending $200,000 to stopgap something that should have been done.
Agreed.
Give me some background on that.
Yeah, so background, we started a project in 2016 that looked at replacing the lime system. That project was morphed into a much larger project to look at the entire water treatment plant, all of the facilities, from the very top of the plant all the way down to the bottom. And through numerous issues, staff changes, COVID, priorities, that project never came to fruition. And then we started a different project in 2021 where we started looking at the plant again in a different way. And now we're back to, I think, where we kind of started in 2016. And we're looking at, just because ultimately we can't afford what we would really like to have, a brand new water treatment plant. And so we're having to go through this water treatment plant and replace it piece by piece as we can afford it. And this piece right here is our highest priority in terms of if we can't soften water, I mean, we'd have to soften water, so we'd have to bring in a rental system of some kind. It would be very expensive. So we need to soften the water. And sure, I think we could make this thing last 2 more years, but we would have to pour a lot of hours and a lot more money and extra parts. And I'm not sure in the end we would save anything.
I understand that
Yeah.
older equipment requires replacement
Right.
at some point. So is this going to be a 2-year, is this just going to get us through 2 years, or will this be used in the future project?
It will not be used in the future project.
Okay.
Yeah, the next project is much different. It's more complicated, but it's also more precise, and will be a better product for all of the citizens.
So you're convinced this $200,000 we're spending is going to at least equal what our repair costs would be on the existing system?
Yes, I don't know that for certain, obviously, but
Right.
because it might just continue to run just fine. But history has told us that this particular unit needs a lot of work, needs a lot of spare parts. It's not as easy to get those when you have supply chain issues.
Right.
And we're also we've had lots of turnover at the water treatment plant as well, so we don't have the people that were used to maintaining this in the middle of the night necessarily on staff anymore. So we're having to train new people to work on this equipment. So. I don't like spending the money this way either, but it's a stopgap.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, trustees?
Is there a secondary market for this 2 years from now?
Somebody that makes pancakes
No,
for
to
a
get-
Saturday fundraiser.
Yeah, to get rid of it. Is there some place to get rid of
I'm
it?
sure there. Yeah,
Well, for a lightly used Slaker.
yeah. I'm sure we could surplus it and sell it. There's this particular unit is used at a lot of water treatment plants, so I'm sure that's an option for us.
Okay.
What's your recommendation, David?
Sure. Staff recommends that the trustees award the lump sum contract to Wind Construction, Inc. in the amount of $292,000. Authorized total construction expenditures of $335,000 for the amounts shown below, $292,000 for the bid, $43,000 for approximately a 15% contingency. Authorize the general manager to sign related documents, approve the budget amendment, and also approve the sole source purchase of the IMS A758 lime slaker. I will add real quickly that that amount that's at the top includes 2 replacement water pumps that we included in the project, but we're hoping we don't need. We're hoping that the water pumps that we have now meet the requirements of this new slaker, because it's the same slaker we already have. And we did that because we wanted to make sure that we didn't have to spend a lot of extra money with structural, electrical, and mechanical modifications to the silo. So we're hoping that it will be closer to 200 instead of the closer to 300 that you see here.
I
Because if
agree.
you don't need those new pumps, you can send them back.
Well, we won't have to purchase them. So the way it's worded in the bid is if required.
Okay.
So the contractor has to do a test of our pumps to see if it generates the pressure and flow rate needed for the new slaker. And if it does, then they don't have to install the pumps and we don't have to buy them.
Understood. Perfect.
Mayor, if I may, just as a point of clarification, and I've talked to David about this prior, this approval of the sole source piece, we did bid that out. It's really more of a sole brand. It was included in the specs for the bid. We just needed a particular model for it to work. So this is not, typically when we see an approval of a sole source purchase, we're not bidding that item out. This was included as a spec and it was bid out, and it's part of the total project that we're awarding. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees?
I move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation. Please vote. It's approved with the vote of 4-0. Item 5B, consider bid award for water treatment plant lime system pre-purchase package. Mr. Barth?
Yes, good evening again. So this, like I mentioned, is a new lime system that we are buying ahead of time essentially so that we can save time with the project. This installation of this system is part of a much larger project to construct a chemicals building that will house a new ammonia system and other necessary chemicals, overhaul the ozone and chlorine systems, and replace the carbon dioxide system at the water treatment plant. So we are making a big dent in that water treatment plant right now with some new stuff. So the city considered 2 new lime system in this bid, one that uses a batch slurry system with quick lime, which is what we use now, and then one that uses hydrated lime. So it's a pre-mixed. RDP Technologies is the manufacturer of the batch system, and that's what you see on this slide here. They have it's their patent. Several communities in Oklahoma use this exact system. It's very precise in terms of how it mixes the lime with the water and then stores it in a slurry aging tank, and then it pumps it continuously through a loop into our solid contact units. Right now we have open troughs that are delivering this slurry and just injecting it into the contact units, so it's not as precise. So we'll have better control over our softening with this new system. This new system takes time to manufacture, and this slide here you can see on the far right is part of the system. That's the slaker. You can see the cone that's taking lime from up above, and then it deposits it into this particular slaker. It's very different than the slaker that you just saw that we have now. This image on the left is just a process diagram that shows how this slaking system works. So this system has to be designed, or the foundation for it, the electrical system, the water, it takes higher pressure water and higher flow rates than what we currently have. So all of that has to be designed by our engineer, who is Black & Veatch. And so, of course, you can't do that till you select a system, because each system has a different set of requirements. And then on top of that, we found out that it was going to take a year after we selected a system to have it made. And so we thought, rather than wait until we have a contractor at the end of this year and then bid out the project, the other chemicals building, the ozone and all of that, and include this lime slaking and then have to wait a year to have it made, why not go ahead and bid the lime system now, allow this company to start making this system that we need. Our engineer will continue to design all of the ancillary items that this system needs, and then we will bid this as a project in January, let's say, of 2024, and assign this agreement that we're asking you to approve tonight. We'll assign that to a general contractor, and so they'll take over paying RDP for the lime system, and they'll take over management of RDP and installing RDP system. So RDP was the only bidder for this particular item, and let's see. So yeah, with that, I think we'll end up saving at least 8 months, if not a year, by purchasing this now, getting them under contract so they can manufacture it, and then we can continue to have our engineer design it. This, by the way, won't be online till probably May of 2025. Is the best case scenario. So because it'll still take time to make it and time to install it and finish the project. So. With that, do you have any questions before I share my recommendation?
I understand there's some confusion or clarification required around single silo versus dual
yes,
silo.
Yes, thank you for reminding me that. So the report that you all have, I think, talked about the 2 silo, because we did advertise it with either a single 20-foot silo or 2 14-foot silos. And the single 20-foot silo still has essentially 2 of everything, except for there's one area to store the quicklime. And so we were looking originally at the 2 silo system. Staff was very interested in that. The water treatment plant staff were very interested in that. However, the 2 silo systems are independent. They're not connected. So if you had to take one of those silos down, which means you're taking down the slaker, you're taking down everything in that one silo, there's no mechanism to transfer lime from one silo to the other. And so that would get very expensive to design that and to construct that. So we went back and also we talked to ODEQ has a requirement that you have 30 days of emergency storage of a chemical. And so when they look at that, they're looking at your worst case scenario. Highest flow rate, worst, hottest day that you're, making the most amount of water. So anyway, this silo is designed, this single 20-foot silo is designed to hold the 30-day storage. The two independent silos would hold 15 days worth of storage. If we were to make each 15-day silo or each 14-foot silo hold 30 days, it would be much taller and be a lot more expensive. So we went back. The single silo system is $300,000 cheaper from RDP's bid. We'll still have plenty of room for the staff to go in and maintain it, and it is a redundant system. So there's 2 slakers, there's 2 slurry tanks, there's 2 dosing, not 2 dosing stations, there's 1 dosing station per contact unit, but there'll be a single loop, and we'll be able to pump the slurry from either side, and we can take the other one down for maintenance. So you're still only running one side at a time. So yes, our recommendation is for and I apologize for the confusion, it's my fault. But our recommendation is to award the project to RDP for the single silo system.
Chair, may I
Trustees?
ask a question?
Please.
Just as a point of clarification, so we do include language in the agenda that allows the trustees to amend or revise prior to action. It appears to me, David, and correct me, that the amounts included in the agenda entry reflect the 2 silo system. Could you provide prior to action the amended amounts? Because what we're wanting to do is consider a bid award for the water treatment plant lime system pre-purchase package to RDP in the amount of, according to the report, it should be $2.9 million.
Yeah, I've got all of that information in this slide here.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that prior to the trustees taking action, we need to amend what we're considering so that it's appropriately reflected in the minutes. Thank you.
Any further questions about the project itself?
Is there any maintenance of the tank or the funnel or whatever that thing's called on top required that would shut the whole system down?
I can't answer that. I would assume that this is designed so that any maintenance that we need to do up top, in terms of coating or if we had an issue with something mechanically inside, we could still bring in a tote system or some sort of satellite system that we could then, pipe into our loop and deliver the lime slurry for a time period while we did that maintenance.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's a way. I haven't really looked into that, but it's a good question.
So one more follow-up question. This is going to be what replaces the $300,000 we just approved?
Yes.
Okay.
I will say, I toured the water plant when early on after I became a counselor, and the amount of manual work and tweaking and upkeep that the people do out there is phenomenal. And so I can certainly see, as there's turnover in people, how hard it is to keep that going if you lose that expertise. And so I am glad to see us moving along on this and getting some replacements, and even though we don't like spending the extra money to Band-Aid it for now, I can see the necessity after touring the plant.
Thank you.
So, David, what is your recommendation on this item?
So, Kimberly, did you say they needed to make a motion to something?
We can
just
do it
need
in
to-
one action, right?
Yeah, we just need you to
Okay.
make sure we've got the right numbers
Sure.
in this.
So staff recommends that trustees award the unit price contract to RDP Technologies, Inc. in the amount of $2.9 million, authorize construction expenditures of $3,190,000 for the amounts shown below, $2,900,000 for the bid, $290,000 for a 10% contingency, authorize the general manager to sign related documents, and approve the budget amendment.
And the attached budget amendment is for $3.19 million, so that's Correct.
That part I did have right.
Trustees, action on the recommendation.
All right, I move we approve the staff recommendation as amended from the information in the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 4-0. All right. Item 5C, report on the Yost Pressure Zone service conditions.
All right. I wanted to just start off by saying that this particular report that I'm about to give is just an informational presentation. It's just to get the message out. I'm not asking you to take any action or authorize any funding this evening. So this cover image is the Rural Water Corp 3 school tower that is out on Yost Road, about a mile west of the water treatment plant. It holds 25,000 gallons, and I think it's called the school tower because it's sitting on school-owned land. So this is just a few background items. The City of Stillwater purchased the Rural Water Corp. number 3 in 2007. The Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality requires us to provide a minimum water pressure of 25 psi at all times in our distribution system. And the last thing I wanted to point out is the Yost pump station is just not able to keep up during peak demands, leaving higher elevation properties at 25 psi.
But that's what, we have to have it at that. That's the minimum.
25? Yes.
Right. So the problem is that's all we can do is the minimum at peak time. Or does it not get up to the 25 psi?
No, it gets up to the 25 psi, but there are, I guess there are times where it could just slightly dip below that, depending on excessive demand in the system. So that's the biggest issue. We can't expand on that issue. We've got to protect the system as it is right now until we can make some changes. So that's a great question. So a little bit of information about the Yost service area. It is there are 449 services or meters in the Yost zone, and you can see on the screen there the Yost zone is north and west of the City of Stillwater limits. It's approximately 23.5 square miles. In comparison, the city limits, if you take out OSU, because OSU doesn't really buy any water from us, is approximately 29 square miles. The ground elevation varies between 890 and 1,129 feet in the Yost zone, so lots of varying topography, which doesn't really help you when you're trying to manage a water system. Also, in comparison, if you're interested, there's 16,800 water meters inside the city limits, so a much different density of meters in an area that's almost the same size. So I mentioned elevations in the Yost zone, so just for people out there who want to know what does that mean, if you're at a lower elevation, you have higher water pressure, and if your house is at a higher ground elevation, you're going to have lower water pressure typically. It doesn't really matter how close you are to the water tank. A lot of people think, oh, I'm right next door to the water tank, I should have amazing pressure. Usually if you're right next door to the water tank, you don't have the best pressure. So that's what this slide is just pointing out. This next slide shows an example of our water model. So we use our model anytime somebody is requesting a new meter out in the rural system, and the water model, so every one of those little nodes is basically a water meter out in the Yost zone. And you can see we've got people that are at 25 psi. That's the area that's basically line that's just south of that would be Yost Road, and where you see that long string of red dots mixed with some yellow in the middle is Range Road. So that kind of gives you some context of where we are, just north and east of Lake McMurtry. But then you've got the yellow nodes that are 26 to 40 psi, which is a little bit better water pressure, but not awesome. And then you've got the green nodes, which most of those are green, 41 to 80 psi, which would be adequate, and then greater than 80 PSI, that's really great water pressure, but it's actually more than you really want to have. So we use our model. We have an engineer that works in our team that uses the model, and anytime somebody comes in and requests a new meter in the rural system, we plug that demand into the model, and we look to see what changes it makes. And because we have people that are right at 25 PSI in those higher elevations, any additional meter puts us further at risk of them being below 25 PSI, which doesn't meet DEQ requirements, and then we're subject to consent orders.
David, are you saying any additional meter in the system, anywhere?
No, in the Yoast zone, sorry.
Well, that's what I meant, in the
Okay.
Yoast zone.
Yes.
So even if it's down by where all the purple high pressure is,
Right.
it's going to be pulling water off, more water off from where
Yes.
the 25 people are.
And that's why, another reason why I'm here. So, the reason why I wanted to come and present this to you all as just a first step is we've got to get this message out. We've had an uptick in the last several months in people wanting, in fact, we had a call today, somebody wants to develop land in the Yoast zone, and they want a bunch of water meters, and we have to explain to them that we are not able to do that right now. The other thing is, like you mentioned, that you've got some really great pressure. I had somebody call who I used to work with out at Meridian not too long ago, and she's got great water pressure where she lives, and she was wanting to get a second meter for another home on her acreage for some family members to live in. And I explained that we can't sell another meter right now in that area because of what it does to these higher elevation properties. And of course, that's confusing to them because you're thinking, I've already got amazing pressure. How does this impact them? So that's why we wanted to get this message out here at the SUA meeting, and then we've got a list of other places just to further communicate the message and to make sure that people are aware when they're making decisions to buy property, looking at development, looking to sell their property, that they have all the facts.
How long have we been having to deny additional meters?
I don't think we've set a new meter in the Yoast zone for over a year, but I don't hold me to that. But I'm pretty certain it's been at least a year.
Do we have any sense of how many meters we have had to deny in that time?
No, because you have some people that just call and say, I'm thinking about developing, and then, we don't really have an application for a meter. Then you have people that come in and actually put down, $50 and apply for a meter, and then we go through the exercise of modeling through that. And so I don't know what the breakout is of how many people have actually applied for meters versus the what-if scenarios. But I can tell you that within the last few months, we've averaged at least 1 or 2 calls a week. And that could be for 1 meter, or that could be for 10. So it's really about protecting our existing customers. It's about making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to under DEQ's regulations, and providing, at least the minimum water pressure that they allow us to provide. And when we're talking about this 25 PSI, this isn't all the time. But we have to do it all the time. But when we're looking at this, we're looking at it on the hottest day, where we would have the highest amount of demand in the system. Because that's what we have to do. We can't just tell somebody you have 25 PSI 362 days of the year, and the other 3, you're going to have 15. So our response is we just wanted to tell you we're going to continue to comply with DEQ requirements and not issue new meters in this area until we have some changes. We're going to increase messaging. We want to reach out to realtors, closing agents, county officials, local news media, We'll work with the marketing department to get some stuff on the city website. I would like to put a map that shows the Yoast zone. We have other areas that are very critical or sensitive to us, new meter applications. So it's not just the Yoast zone, but the Yoast zone is one that's really right now been hit the hardest with interest, and we just don't have the ability to approve a new meter in that area until we have some changes to the infrastructure out there.
When's that going to be?
When's that going to be? So there's several components. We've got a new Yoast pump station, which is really the issue, is the pump station. That is planned inside the new finished water pump station that we're going to bid out later this year, and it will take 2 years to build that. We're also working with our consultant to build a new elevated storage tower next to that school tower. Although it will be much larger, it will also be taller, so the pressure will be higher. And a new transmission line that'll be from the water treatment plant to that tower that will be bigger, and a much heavier duty pipeline than what's in the ground right now. So all of that.
How does all that get funded? Where is all that being funded from?
The water rates.
From city water rates? From the 16,000 meters inside the city limits?
Well, and the other water meters that are outside the city limits.
Well,
yes.
This is my, I have a real problem with this issue, because we purchased this in 2007.
Right.
With, at the time, and I know I'm not sure anybody in the room really was even part of this, but with promises that we were going to improve the system. Folks who live out there have been upset for years that we haven't made the improvements that we told people we were going to make in 2007. We don't have the money to maintain the city's water system, much less the rural water systems that we own outside the city limits. And we're talking about much needed improvements that cost a whole lot of money. And I don't understand, from a funding standpoint, it certainly doesn't make sense to me why city water rates should be used to pay for improvements to the rural water system. It's a separate entity. I understand that we own it, but this is a mess that was made 15 years ago, and we need to figure out a better solution to this problem. And I know this isn't an engineering problem, David.
No,
this is
okay.
a policy problem that we as a community are going to have to figure out, because this is not sustainable.
Yeah, I understand. It's hard. The lime slaker thing, this, the money that it's going to take to do this, because we have lots of issues that are right here in town. We have lots of issues at the water treatment plant, the Caw pipeline. We're looking at the additional raw water storage at Lake McMurtry. All of that stuff's very expensive. And at the end of the day, yeah, I understand. The need is greater than the resources, and so we have to continue to prioritize. And yeah, you all have to weigh these decisions.
From your perspective, is there any benefit that the city or the city's water system gains from owning the rural water systems? From a system perspective, I know you're not. I'm not asking you from a policy perspective.
I can't see that there's a benefit to us owning the rural water system. No.
Thank you. Sorry, I hijacked you a little bit there.
That's okay. I think it's a benefit to the customers in the rural water system that we own this system.
I mean, like I said, I think the idea when it was floated and when we brought it in, and this idea that somehow it was going to help us with expansion and all, whatever the bill of goods was that we were sold in 2007 for this, I understand that, but it's just not the case. It's just not how it's working, and that's. And it creates a strain on all the other resources of the community for the 400 meters that exist in these 24 square miles. That's not how other rural water systems operate, right? How many other rural water systems in the state are owned by city municipal systems who are additionally funding, who are bringing city municipal resources into that rural water system? I mean, is this a common practice? I don't
know. Sorry. I would have
I'm
to
sorry,
look.
I'm
Yeah.
off topic.
But
No, it's a good question. I don't know the answer.
we do supply water to other rural water systems though, correct?
Yes.
But do we own those systems, or are we just a wholesaler?
We own one other one, Rural Water District 1, that's north and east of this area. And then we sell water to Rural Water 51 East, Rural Water District 3, which is south of Stillwater. And then we sell water to Lone Chimney Water Association, Noble County 3. I'm probably forgetting some, but yes, so we own 2 rural water systems, and then we sell to others.
So when we sell water to these other systems, do we sell that water at the same rate that we charge our Stillwater citizens, do you know?
I'm going to need help from somebody on that.
And I'm not even the most knowledgeable Bill's out here, and I think he wants to stand up. He's probably also itching to talk. So a few things too, we do not sell, when we sell wholesale prices, we sell it at a lower price than retail. When we have master meters, it's a reduced price, but we don't have distribution lines, so we don't have the same maintenance, so that's the caveat. And of course, we have our rate study going on to help us right now with what the rate should be. And as make you feel a little bit better, the language in that exhibit that is associated with us purchasing that is if funding is available. And we have not kept up, as everybody knows, with what's in that exhibit, but it's because funding has not been available. And as long as we don't issue these next meters in that area, we will come back to you when we are ready to bid that and ask you, do we spend this money here? Or second option is hold steady. Like, don't give more meters, and
But,
it never
yeah.
grows, and we stay where we are.
That's just a bad option for the people who want to live out in the county,
Yes.
right? I mean, and for the people who do live in the county,
Yes.
right? I mean, I think it just seems to me by us owning it, we're actually restricting the ability of this water system to actually provide the service it could or should provide to people who would like to live in that area of the county.
But if they would have kept it, could they have been able to do anything different?
I don't know, but it
With
wouldn't be our
450
problem.
meters, I mean, looking at that, right, looking at that life cycle on what they were bringing in and of their ability to make
Water
the change.
3, is it Corp 3 that's south of the city?
This
Like-
is,
District 3.
yes,
sorry,
District 3.
that's south of the city. There's tons of new meters south of the city in that water district, correct?
they are building a lot, yes.
Tons and tons of housing and water meters being added south of 44th, 56th.
Yes,
I mean, so that rural water district is able to figure out a way to build a system that, I mean, this is why this doesn't seem, something is not working here. And I don't know if it's because we own it or because we're not willing to invest in it or because what you're describing is that we have way more places to spend money on water distribution than we have money to spend. And so we're
Higher
just not
priorities,
able,
right.
yeah, we have higher priorities in the
Yep.
system. But that to me is I mean, we're holding this, I mean, I don't know, maybe we're holding the system back, but they're sort of sitting there going, well, what can we do until the city has enough money to fix the pipeline, fix the water treatment plant, fix the other distribution problems we have in the community, and then finally get to the rural water system as, where it is on the priority list. I mean, that's not a great solution for anybody. I guess my comment is, hopefully we're looking at every possible creative solution to change this, because what we're doing here is not working. I mean, and it's not helping anybody in the long run. We're restricting growth in the county. We're costing us more money than we should be spending, and we're it just doesn't seem to be working.
And again, it's not an engineering problem.
It's not an engineering problem.
And we're yelling at the
Thank
engineers.
you. I know. I'm not yelling at the engineers.
Before we bought this system, were they treating their own water, or were they were buying water from us and just distributing? Okay.
Yes, Corp 3 bought water from Stillwater prior to our purchase of Corp 3. I'm Bill Millis, by the way. I was just going to add, not to answer any questions, but maybe a little more context, because you referenced, what we're currently unable to do in the Yoast zone. We also, in that past, previous councils approved and executed Water 2040, which made great improvements both to municipal system customers, but also to a lot of Corp 3 customers in the southwest part of town. And also regarding District 3, we've done cooperative projects in the past, and so there's a large water tower that we share with District 3. My point there just being there's different creative ways to handle it, and we've dealt with those in the past and come up with different creative solutions. So there's not it's not a one or the other, yes or no, do or die.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure it's not. I just think that, I hope, my comment is just to say, hopefully we're exploring all of the possible options here, rather
Yes,
than just
yeah.
us continuing to not spend money that needs to be spent to improve this system so that people can actually get meters where they want to have meters. I mean,
Understood, and appreciate that. I just want to add context, as
Yeah.
some of the group wasn't here back then.
yeah,
And also wanted, Councilor Harden mentioned, you asked about wholesale rates.
Yeah.
And the rate studies take that into account. Our rates are cost of service based, which means we can only charge what it costs us to operate the system. And so all that goes into the calculation of the rates through the rate consultant, so that a wholesale customer where we don't have to maintain lines and things like that pays an appropriate rate. So that's a goal of the cost of service study that's underway now.
well, how does that work for the rural systems that we own? Because we do have to maintain the lines. Or is it just because it's separately accounted for?
That's actually was one of the drivers at the initiation of the current rate study, was to figure out the balance between the municipal system and the two rural systems. Is it equitable? When the most recent rate study, the 2015 anyway, all our O&M costs all just went into one bucket, so it wasn't separated out based on rural versus municipal systems. And so the current rate consultant is trying to evaluate that.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's state law that sets what we can sell wholesale water to the rural water system at, correct? I mean, there's like a limit. We can't sell it more than cost of
Correct.
service.
It has to be based on the cost of service. Yes, sir.
And so if we're talking about a rural system that we own, and we're selling it to that system at cost of service, are we including the cost of service for the lines in that zone, or are we only including the cost of service for the municipal system?
Well, right now, all our customers, wholesale and retail, rural and municipal, are paying the cost of service. But it hasn't been teased out. Is the cost of service higher if you're out in the rural system versus if you're in the municipal system?
Well, I mean,
that has not been,
400
chopped up that
meters
fine
per
yet.
25 square miles versus 16,000. The cost of service is going to be a ton higher, right?
It could be. We don't know that.
Well,
There's fewer meters, but there's smaller pipes, potentially fewer leaks. So I just don't know.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what that cost of service study says, because to me, it seems problematic if we're limited on what we can charge for that wholesale water going to the rural system. But because that's based on this whole idea, well, you're not maintaining the system, right? You can sell it at wholesale because you're not paying for maintaining the system, but we are paying for maintaining the system. So we should be selling water to those folks at the exact same retail rate I'm paying in the city of Stillwater.
We are. They pay the
They're
same
paying
rates.
the same retail rate?
Yes. Corp 3 customers pay the same retail
What's
rate.
that?
In fact, currently, all our customers, whether they're on Corp 3, District 1, or the municipal system, inside or outside the city, all pay the same water rate. Yes.
Because we lump all of those costs of service in together. That's what you're saying about the rate study, is that because all the O&M gets put together and the rate is just one even one across the system.
One of the terms of the acquisition of Corp 3 was that those customers would pay the same rate as in-city. So that's dictated by the agreement, And I think possibly that may be the root reason why in previous cost of service studies, all customers were just one cost of service was determined for retail customers.
That's helpful. Thank you.
One more quick question, not regarding that water, but if somebody wants to build, if somebody wants to drill a well, what's the groundwater like around here? Is it usable as potable water? Anybody know?
If you can't hardly find groundwater.
Okay.
We just had one example of somebody east on 6th who wants a water meter from us in the 51 East area, and they've got 2 wells, and they say that it trickles. They both
Okay.
trickle, and they have to fill up their tanks overnight for ag use. It just takes so long to get water because there's not good aquifers here.
Just thinking outside the box for a second.
There are cases of people with good, high quality water and plenty of water, but there's more that either quality wise or quantity wise are not satisfied.
Thanks.
So back to the Yost zone for a second. Hypothetically, if we were to install a larger, taller water tower and not install a pump station to service all of that, does it help us? Does it not help us? Obviously the cost is lower, but does it really provide any real relief?
I'm sorry, you said to install the new tower, but no pump station?
Yes.
Yeah, we would
Will that
still
even
need to-
work?
That won't work.
Okay.
Yeah, the pump station that we have right now is the limiting factor. The tower that we have is just like a high point in a line. It really doesn't do anything. We have to build a new pump station and then have the elevated water storage and the new transmission main to improve the service. Really, the transmission main, the one that we have out there now, it's just the quality is not going to handle the new pump station. As soon as we install that and run it like at the pressure and flow rate we need to run it, it's going to blow it out. So that's why we're installing a new pipeline.
Okay. Thank you.
No easy answers.
Anything further on the item?
No, the other thing I was just going to add, because you were talking about revenue, I learned this last week, and maybe you guys knew this, I didn't. But we're not allowed to charge sales tax on water and wastewater. We can charge sales tax on electric and other utilities. For some reason, the state thought that you shouldn't charge sales tax on water and wastewater. So it's not a revenue source, really. I mean, it's a cost of, we bring in what it costs. So
Okay.
Interesting.
something else to think about.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Congratulations on your appointment as the BPAC chairman, too.
I'm super excited about it.
Thank you for volunteering.
All right, we're going to move on to item 5D, which is no change in subject matter. We'll have the Rural Water Advisory Board quarterly report from Robert Sitton.
I'm Robert Sitton, and I am the chairman of the Rural Water Stillwater Advisory Board, and I can highlight some of those things that you were talking about and bring forth some of that. I've been on the board since 2010. We were bought out in 2007, which was told, and the reason why the city came to us to buy us out is they were wanting to become a regional water provider. And at the time, there was federal funds to come back in because the city could not get its 50,000 population. So another way of getting more funds distributed into the community was becoming a regional water provider. So they came to us. We didn't go to the city. And so that's now the city has bought a Cadillac of a system, or at least that's what they thought at the time. And Cadillac parts are expensive, as you see, which they pointed out. And so a new water tower, all that is going to cost a bunch of money. But I need to bring forward one thing that, Mayor, I think you were sitting on the board whenever you all completed the 2040 plan. Maybe you were a counselor at the time.
Maybe so.
I think you were, because I remember you all lifted the moratorium after the 2040, and that was over there, and you were on the board. And I brought forth and thanked them for that, because there was a lot of counselors that was here that thought outside the box to be able to complete that 2040 plan. And anytime that you have something that reaches the rural people, it also reaches the city people. And that's what that 2040 plan did. So now we need to come up with this Yost Lake plan and do the very same thing. Yes, David pointed out that we have so many numbers of meters out there and this and that and the other, but the city does not want to expand out in that area if they can't provide water. You can't annex anything if you can't provide utilities to it. So the whole thing in '07 is that we had people on the board of the city that was wanting to expand here, there, everywhere else. And so they had a whole different plan than what you all have. So the bad thing with you all sitting on the board is that you still need to take their plan, which they purchased that Cadillac, and you need to carry it forward. And so that's why I'm here. I want to push that Yost Lake pump station. We need to get something going out there. People are in dire needs. People want to buy. You all fixed that problem in the southwest zone. So I have confidence that you all can think outside the box to be able to come up with the funds so that way you all can solve this problem. Mayor's kind of smiling, this and that and the other, and I'm glad that he is.
I appreciate your confidence.
Because, well, there are people that continually change, which brings new blood, which brings new thoughts to get this done. And so I'm glad that we have new people sitting on the board, so that way they can start bringing those new ideas forward, new funding, new grants. We have a new grant writer. Hopefully, we can get more federal funding on different grants and stuff like that. But, one of the things that I kind of want to push is that, you don't know what the cost of service out there is. But I've got reports back here, attachment number 1, attachment number 2, and attachment number 3. And I love running numbers. I love to see customer turnover rate. I'd like to see the city do the very same thing inside the city limits as to their customer turnover rate. So thus we would know how many times that somebody has to go out there and turn the meter on, turn the meter off, actually look at meters and stuff like that. So my attachment number 2 is turnover rates. We can look at attachment number 1, that's water loss. Is our rural system losing more water than the city? Losing less water than the city? I'd like to see some rates. I can do figures whenever the city provides me numbers. The city doesn't always have the people in line to do that because of COVID, different staffing, this and that and the other. There isn't the manpower to always get the numbers to us, so I can't continually report on what water losses are, turnover rates, this and that and the other. These are graphs that I thought was very important. Me being an accountant, I think it's very good that we know what is happening within the system. So if it's not done within the city and I'm doing it outside, how can we compare? But how can we look at a business, water is business, and even know what we're doing unless we have some type of numbers in front of us? So I'd like to hopefully maybe somebody can help me maintain and get new numbers, to continually upgrade my graphs, but then also take some of these attachments and turn them internal. And you were asking how much does it cost per meter? I'd love to know that. Mm-hmm. And does it cost less because of the fact that they have to come out rurally less? Or does it cost more because we have more breaks? I don't get those reports. I'd love to be able to see them to be able to report back to you. So maybe somebody on the city side can do side-by-side comparison, and then that way you can see. I think that would be great. Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any questions?
Trustees?
I don't suppose you have the magic solution.
Yes. We had a magic solution back in 2007. It came to a vote for the rural board, and it was probably about 56 to 44 to go with the city, and that was our magic solution. So we thank the city for that magic solution because Our rural system was set up with federal money to provide water. And now you all are taking on a whole different role. You all are providing water at a certain level. Not water for everybody, but at a certain level. State requirements. So everybody that has, everybody that has a water meter out there, we thank you for that. Because that means that if my neighbor turns it on, mine doesn't go down. I appreciate that. So I understand why we are in no more meters. But still, again, if we want our city to grow, if we want our tax dollar to grow, sales tax inside and all the rest, we have to be provided growth outside the city limits.
I'm surprised there's not some source of funding for, quote, rural water. State, federal funding, USDA, I mean, NASA, I don't care who it is. I mean,
Most of the state infrastructure money was dedicated to rural water in different forms. I mean, there's money out there for sure in terms of stuff that we could be going for, and I know Shelley and our team have been working hard on trying to find it, but
it takes people like you, Tom, to ask those questions and possibly speak to others. And the more that you speak to others about it, the more I speak to others about it, it puts our ears out with more feelers, so that way it comes back.
well, this is an issue that needs to be publicized more, because it does affect economic development of the entire area. I mean, this is an issue that needs to be addressed somehow. And my mic is on. I'm sorry. It needs to be addressed somehow, and I don't know. This is the first time I've heard of it. As you know, I'm new on the board. But this is something that, it's all kinds of negative ramifications, not just people not getting 25 PSI water. I mean, there's long-term ramifications to this that we need to try to do something with, and I don't have the answer right now.
Long-term ramifications are people come to town, they want to buy land, and then they're told, no water. City can provide no water.
Right.
So what does that make our city look like?
I totally agree.
But
tell them to buy a house in the city.
But I want to push that you all did do the 2040 plan. You all were able to come up with the funds. You all completed that project. Southwest Pressure Zone is great. So now we need to move on to the next, because there's always a fire to put out around the corner.
Unfortunately, that's Call Lake Pipeline right now. That's the next fire.
Correct. And so they have to be prioritized, just like what everybody says. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yep.
But we put this off since '07. This was on our priority. You can see on the sheet that I put back here and back. I can't even remember the name of it now. I'm getting older and my brain doesn't work. It's attachment 4. I have it on here, and it's called Exhibit C. And that was within our contract in '07. That was all the items that was supposed to be worked down. And the city has done a very good job of working a lot of them down. And then we go into financial problems, and some of the bigger stuff doesn't get worked down.
Yeah, I noticed there was a lot of to be completed projects there.
Correct. Any other questions for me?
Remind me of your term.
3-year term, and I would have just came on. Now, this is at the end.
We just reappointed you, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Because it says 2022 in your report.
And this is the 2022
it's-
report. And so I came on again. And so at the completion of this term, then it will be 15 years on the board. So I know a little bit of history.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm willing to come forward and educate you all in a little bit of our history.
Don't go away. We need the institutional knowledge.
Well, I don't know as to that, but I think that a lot of reading does the very same thing. And that's where anybody that comes and sits as counselors, like you all do, have the responsibility to go back and find out what previous counselors have done,
Or
and
not
what they
done.
have, and what they have signed, which this was done in '07, but you all still carry forward the same responsibility forward from '07.
We do. We really appreciate your work, Robert. I mean, this has been a lot of labor for you, and I know your reports and the numbers that you attach and the work that you do to provide the information you provide is very helpful, and I know your commitment to finding these solutions has been unmatched, and so we appreciate the work that you're continuing to do to
Thank
help
you.
work us through these problems.
Thank you.
We'll get there.
Yes, we will. We'll work together to get there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5E, excuse me. Utility rate overview. Melissa Reams. Feels like we're kind of zooming out on this problem.
Yes, it is. If you'll bear with me a minute, I'll pull our PowerPoint up. But this is a component of the solution. As we've been working the CAW water project, the funding stack is incremental, and part of the funding stack is going to be the study of rates. And that could be part of the solution in the rural areas as well. Because your observations about the cost to serve, we do have a current rate study in process to try and, as Mr. Millis said, tease those rates out, tease those costs out, and see exactly what it does cost us to run some of these rural systems. Okay.
One quick question along that line. Can we charge customers in a rural system different rate than we charge in the city?
Well, contractually,
If there's a different cost, we can pass that cost along to a rural system.
I would say yes, but if in this contract where we bought Corp 3, it stated that they would receive the same rate as people who lived within the corporate city limits. So I think it's kind of twofold. You have to look at what was in those agreements when those systems were bought. Okay. Okay. So we're going to talk about, this is the first of a series of council education pieces and community education pieces about rate studies, what is involved, and the kind of the magic behind a rate. If you'll envision your utility bill that you receive every month, it is a one-stop shop bill. There's electric rates on there, there's water, there's wastewater, there's waste management charges on there, and then there's some ancillary charges. If you've elected to be part of the ambulance trust district, you'll see that fee on there. A little known utility that's on our bill is stormwater. And right now, we as residents pay $1 a month for stormwater. And the more that staff has looked at stormwater, we are more and more starting to consider that a utility in and of its own right. So how do we get to those rates that show up on those bills magically every month? What is comprised? How do we get there? And that's part of why we engage consultants to help us study our rates and make informed decisions about what we charge. So how do they go about this? Well, they look at what types of costs we incur to provide the service. And if you're on the electric side, the first big cost is wholesale power that we buy from GRDA. We are a full requirement customer of GRDA. The next big piece is our infrastructure. And we are very, very blessed here in this community to have forward-thinking staff and forward-thinking people that came before us to provide a good financial structure for the infrastructure of the electric utility. It is 99.9% reliable, And a lot of that is due to the infusion of equity into the infrastructure itself. Then we look at operations and maintenance, because not everything is infrastructure. A lot of it is maintaining the system that we have. And then in the case of the electric utility, there is also the transfer to the city. So all of those components, our electric consultant is taking all of those components and looking at what it costs us to run this utility. On the water, wastewater, and stormwater side, we're looking at the source of the water, where we get the water from, how we get it to the treatment plant. We look at the pipeline and the pump stations. We were just referring to the Yost pump station, that it needs improvement to do better in that system. We look at the cost of water treatment, chemicals. The engineers were referring to ammonia and lime. I looked up slacker. It does mean to quench your thirst. I don't know how you get that there, but that's a treatment process to soften the water. So we look at those costs to treat the water. I think we think of water as free. A lot of our customers think of water as free. But I don't know that I'd want to drink the raw water coming out of Call Lake. It has to be processed and made potable. Operation and maintenance of our facility and of these different treatment pieces of equipment, like the lime slacker and the chlorine and the clarifiers and all of that goes along. And then just the infrastructure. So if you think about where our water treatment plant is on Yost Road, and our system winds its way down, clear down to about 80th and Coyle Road. That I don't know in distance how far that is, but when you think about it, it's a fur piece, and all the winding and the people that we're serving along the way. So that, if you start looking at it that way, we're breaking down the component pieces. And also what we're looking at is what is a fixed cost and what is a variable cost. Okay, so we're breaking them into their different buckets, and then we're saying, are they fixed, are they variable, or the consultant is. So why do we study rates? We are a cost to serve community, mainly because in most regards, we're a monopoly, because you can't just, unlike Texas, go out and pick and choose who you think you want to buy things from. So no, it's City of Stillwater. That's who you're going to get your electric from. That's who you're going to get your water, unless you drill a water well, much to the discussion before. We need to recover our cost, and that's revenue coming into us. So we need to make sure that we're meeting our revenue requirements, and that that revenue is stable, and we have a stable rate also. Then we want, much to you all's point in the discussion about rural versus within the corporate city limits, we want equity among customer classes. And at times, you can get one customer class bearing a larger portion of the rate than another customer class. If that's a conscious decision, great. If that's an encouragement to bring a certain sector to town, and it's a conscious decision by this council or by the trustees, that's appropriate at that time. We can at times get our rates out of whack to where one class of customer may be subsidizing another, but that was really not our intent. And so that's why you monitor rates as you move through. And then we want to be efficient economically. And this James Bonbright is kind of the father of utility rate design. And he said it was promoting optimal offerings and discouraging wasteful use of services. So the kind of that balance there. So wanted tonight to provide you, set the stage for further discussions, and some of that is looking back at the history of rate design and rate change within the city of Stillwater. The last wastewater rate study was done in 2015. with adjustments there. And the electric rate study, we looked back, it was where we could find reference was back to 1998. So at least 25 years ago, if not more. Now, we have had in place the lesser of CPI or 3% escalator for most of these years. And that has stood us in pretty good shape. But we're getting into a period now of inflation where we're going to have to be a little more aggressive about how we handle these things. We did have a rate study commissioned in 2018 through Avant Energy, and they were going to look at electric, water, and wastewater. And we did get a good result, or we got a result from them. It was 2022, right before COVID hit, that they came and presented their findings. But when we commissioned that study, we asked at that point that the escalator be suspended so that we didn't get, if we were out of balance, we didn't get further out of balance. And then we roll into COVID in March, on March 16th of 2022. That date's etched in my mind, if not in anybody else's. And as we started working with council and we were concerned about the resilience of our community, we made the decision not to increase our rates and to hold on the reactivization of the 3% escalator. And so that rate escalator was reinstated in July of 2022 for all utilities. So our plan moving forward is to continue to have discussions with council, with the trustees, and to have large community education and outreach. We don't want anybody caught cold by this, and we have a large population that comes in and then they leave. I would like for them to be more informed. They may not grasp why they need to be informed, but we've got to reach them where they are. We've got to reach the people on fixed incomes where they are. And one of the questions that comes up as you do these rate studies is, how do you handle the low to moderate income families? Do you build that kind of adjustment into the rate, or do you handle it outside of the rate? Currently, one of our mechanisms, on your bill, you can donate to help alleviate someone else's bill that might not be able to make payment in full at this point in time. And I believe the agency that we use is Community Action to help us process those requests. So we had planned to have the bigger rate discussion ready in June. But NewGen, who is doing our water, wastewater, and rural water study, got started late. So we needed to push it a little bit. And so we will begin to start bringing these to you in September and October for your consideration and decision. We will have the consultants here for their particular meeting. Lisa Vetter is doing electric for us, and Lisa's been with us since the Avant study began. Very knowledgeable, and she will be here with us for that particular meeting. And then Dave Yonke's with NewGen out of Austin, and he has been involved with us over the years with different utilities. So he's done the waste management rate study, and that one's probably coming up again, needing to be looked at. He has worked on the rural water for us, and he has also worked on our rural fire contract. That is not necessarily a utility, but that is a fee that we need to make sure that we are recovering adequately. So we will be bringing those to you, like I said, September or October timeframe. But during all of this, Dawn and I and the team are developing an outreach program, because that is very important to make sure nobody is caught off guard, or give our best effort not to let them be caught off guard. And I know that the hour's getting late. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions, trustees?
I'm sorry to always be the one with the questions, but here we go.
Okay.
When you reinstated the escalator, did you just pick up at 3% or did you retroactively add for the years that were not escalated?
No, we just picked up with the lower CPI or 3%, and right now it's 3%. Mhm. And that's helped. It's been a big help as we start moving forward and looking at projects that need to be undertaken.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. Look forward to lots more information about that in the coming months. Trustees, any reports from the officers of the board? Is there a motion to adjourn SUA?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second to adjourn the SUA meeting, please vote. With a vote of 4-0, Stillwater Utilities Authority is now adjourned.